So as you guys know, 7 out of 8 of the defendants have been found guilty of conspiring to shoot Digga D. They were sentenced to a total of 116 years a few days ago. And as promised, guys, it's Saturday, so we're going to do a full breakdown of the case now that Chris Summers has dropped his Substack, which covers everything because he's been following this trial closely. Shout out to Chris Summers. His Substack is going to be linked in the description. He is a top crime journalist who covers many cases involving UK rappers and gives us the information that we want to know. And this case has been a big talking point because it determines whether Fredo is going to come back to the UK. For those of you guys that don't know, Fredo is one of the biggest rappers in the UK. We now know that Fredo was arrested for this conspiracy on the 28th of February 2023 at a flat in Enfield. But what's crazy is before this, they say that Maya Mills, who was Digga D's ex-girlfriend, they were very public about this, that in January 2022 in Dubai, she ran into Fredo, and when she ran into Fredo, she slapped him. Now, how on earth did they find this out? I have no freaking idea, but it does, you know, help with their story. Yeah, you know, it makes sense. Like, if that's your girl at the time and she's in Dubai and she runs into who they think is your main op, like, she's gonna be, you know, going mad, like, why you want to my man? Why you want to my man? No! Boom, you know what I mean? Like, you can just imagine it, innit? Don't know who on earth told them that, but come on now. Big up Maya Mills, though, outside the Burberry store. Come on, she knows Burberry, the best brand in the world, the only brand worth spending your money on if you're buying a luxury clothing brand. Facts. They say that in March 2016, Fredo was allegedly stabbed by a 10-11 gang member called Crazy George, who himself was later stabbed in the eye. Fredo spent almost a year in custody around this time, and upon his release in 2017, he released his first mixtape. Then they bring up the time where Digga D and, you know, a bunch of other, you know, of his affiliates, they got arrested going on a ride out to, they say it's the 12 gang, so Shepherd's Bush. They say they were going on a ride out to Shepherd's Bush. They got sentenced for that. They were caught with machetes and baseball bats. Yeah, mad. And he was 17 at the time in 2018. And they bring up a few murders. They bring up, obviously, Billy the Kid. They bring up Gucci, and they bring up, Woo. They bring up Lil Dot's brother. Gucci was from South Kilburn, and yeah, when he passed away, he was dissed a lot. You know, like, a lot of people were dissing him. A lot of people seem to be celebrating his death in their songs and online. And they also brought up Emlo. We spoke about Emlo in the previous video, but they also bring up Emlo's murder. They're trying to link all of this together to say that it's violence between Fredo and Digga D. And when Digga D made this song on the 13th of October 2022 called Stay Inside, the lyrics hit different now when you realize what was actually going on at the time. Listen, it's like there's a war going on outside right now, man.
Fucking war going on outside right now.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what you man really expect, to be honest. Like, that's the life you man live. Do what you gotta do, bro. But, like, you're literally rapping about things that are actively going on. You're literally self-snitching. You're giving the police clues as time's going on. That, like, you know? And I'm sure you guys remember the block of flats in 9 Elms around Vauxhall where they were stashing guns, where they had covert cameras and they saw a bunch of members going in and out of there and they linked them to the firearm like that. And on the 10th of November 2022, the police raided the flat where they were, you know, using, they thought they were using it to stash guns. Because all 3 of the murders I mentioned, they were unsolved. Like, multiple murders. It was a lot of tit-for-tat violence, but a lot of them are unsolved and they're still unsolved to this day. They found a gun, a self-loading pistol, and a sandwich bag containing 17,000 £1,000 worth of heroin. Over the next 4 months, they would arrest 9 HRB members in connection with the conspiracy, including Fredo, who was arrested in Enfield. When he was arrested, they gave him a caution. When they interviewed him, he answered no comment to everything. And when they searched the flat in Enfield, they ended up finding an iPhone, a watch, some jewelry, and a couple bags of wheat. And they also found a mural in there. And Ian McLaughlin, the prosecutor here as well, McLaughlin, I'm not a fan of that surname because I hated my science teacher. She was a bitch. But he was trying to use this mural to paint to the jury that Fredo is the head of the gang, that he sees himself as an important member of the gang. Because the mural had 22 people and it had, you know, Lil Dots, Javon Tyson. It had his brother on there with a halo on his head. And it also had Billy on there. Billy is another guy who is alleged to have been involved in gang activity. He was killed. And these 3 guys ended up getting sentenced to at least 29 years for Billy's murder. The Old Bailey heard he was a member of a violent street gang which started a gunfight after traveling to the Stonebridge estate in Harlesden in the early hours of the 16th of July 2020. This was peak lockdown times, man. He was accompanied by 4 friends and armed with 2 guns when they arrived in the territory of his sworn rivals. They had intended to attack the other gang in response to their friend being fatally stabbed the day before, but the vehicle they were traveling in was shot at several times when they arrived in the rival territory. Oh my God. This, you know, this is weird to me because, like, this is where I grew up. You know, I grew up, like, this is areas I was in all the time growing up, bro. It's mad, but shout out to Peter's Fish Bar, man. and best fish and chip shop in the world. Facts. Anyone knows that. If you know, you know, innit? Best fish and chip shop in the world. Now, while Fredo was on bail, he flew to Dubai and he has not been seen since. Now, Fredo is innocent until proven guilty. He's not had his own trial yet, but it is extremely likely that if Fredo does return to the UK, he will have to stand trial because he is wrapped up in this conspiracy from what it looks like now. He is innocent until proven guilty, of course, but we have Snapchat messages that were mentioned in court that implicate Fredo in this conspiracy. Fredo has said that this is cap. He's just posted cap. He's obviously not going to talk about it because he's going to add more fuel to the rumor mill, but he says it's cap. Now, I did show you guys the documents from the first trial in May 2024, and that trial ended up actually getting thrown out, and there was a retrial which took place recently, but because of disclosure issues or whatever went wrong, that trial ended up getting stopped, and there was a retrial about 12 weeks ago because this trial did go on for about 10 weeks. It's a long trial, man, long time, but there were a lot of defendants, and they were all on trial for conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent and for smuggling mobile phones into prisons. 7 of them who were found guilty were sentenced to 17 years. 1 of the 7 was sentenced to 14 years, and 1 of them was only sentenced to 2 years because he wasn't found guilty of the conspiracy. I keep saying that man needs to be thanking God. It's this man over here, Abraham Safo Frimpong. He needs to be thanking God, mate. You've been given a second chance at life. I just hope you take it, my guy. And I'm going to link my previous video, probably in the top right, yeah, where I explain everything that took place in the first trial that was cancelled, because everything that was mentioned in that first trial was mentioned in this trial as well. So I recommend you guys go and watch that one before you watch this video. And we now know that the PTSD Lil Dots was going through was no joke, because even in the trial, his barrister, his solicitor, Alfej Bell, this guy here, he was representing him. He had to ask the court for special breaks because of his PTSD, because for those of you guys that don't know, Lil Dots lost his sister and 2 of his brothers. He is the only one of his mother's children remaining, and you can only imagine how his mother's now feeling and the trauma that he has been through. But the prosecution obviously argued, you know, because they're going to use anything against you, you know. That's why it's important to hear 2 sides in court, because the prosecution can make you sound hella guilty and your defense can make you sound hella innocent, and then the jury's meant to make their decision. She said that it is claimed that the death of your brother Denisha is the reason that you wanted to take revenge on this gang, and you had made multiple threats about it on social media. And they did release CCTV images of the person suspected of killing Lil Dots' brother, but nobody's been arrested. That murder was not solved. He was shot in the heart in Queen's Park. Bracknell Street, Queen's Park, over on this road to be more specific, right here. How many people live here? And somebody lost their life here. It's crazy when you think about it. Now, Killian, who was jailed for 17 years, they say that on the first day of the retrial at Kingston Crown Court, they ran into Stonebridge gang members. And they say on the 9th of May 2025, in the trial that took place, Killian refused to wear handcuffs when he went into court because he didn't feel safe, knowing that there were ops in the court like next door. And they also say that Romello Briggs, who was sentenced to 17 years, who was out on bail, he was seen going into another courtroom allegedly looking for Stonebridge members in court, bruv. On the same day that Killian said, yo, I don't feel safe wearing handcuffs, he was allegedly going in another courtroom where there were Stonebridge members. And that led to Judge Tregiglas Davey, I think that's how you say his name, Tregiglas Davey. There he is there. We've managed to find a picture of him. He actually ended up imposing some new bail conditions onto Romello to make sure that he couldn't go into any other courtroom other than the courtroom he was supposed to be in, which is, it's mad they even got to a point where the judge had to do it. It shows you these man, the hatred, it runs deep, bro. But Chris Summers does say this in the Substack, and I said this already. Both of these trials, there's a lot of similar evidence, so I'm not going to go over all of it that I know you guys have heard already, or I know that most people have heard already. I urge you to go and watch my video on the case, why Fredo can't come back to the UK. In that video, it's all broken down. Like, all the evidence, everything presented is all broken down. But I'll summarize it. I'll skim over it. Now, on the 17th of October 2022, this is when it all went left. Deshaun Nicholas, photoed here for another case for drugs in 2015. He was arrested and his phone was seized. And you guys should know by now, once the police have your phone, they can extract a whole bunch of information. And they extracted a bunch of messages from a Snapchat group with a bunch of HRB members. Apparently there were 33 members in the group, including Fredo and everybody else. And that is the main reason as to why they managed to get these guys on this conspiracy, because the Snapchat messages were able to show intent. And prosecutor Ian McLaughlin, who I just don't like like his surname. He said it provided an unusual, perhaps unique insight into the workings of a criminal gang. It would also give the police a unique perspective on the events of the 6th of November 2022, a night when Digga D allegedly came close to being assassinated. At 9:30 p.m. that evening, Patrick, outside, a music manager, messaged one of his clients, a rapper called Russ Millions. Now in the trial, they show a bunch of text messages that they allege are between Lil Dots and Russ Millions. Now Russ has not been charged with anything. We don't know if it was even Russ who sent the text, but obviously it's just gossip, and Russ obviously, you know, weren't conspiring to do nothing to Digga D. And they also tried to link Fredo to the HRB gang with some lyrics. They quote lyrics from one of his songs where he says, "My little nigga, this is Pattern Gang, you best not provoke." And they say HRB were also known as the Pattern Gang and had even bought out their own clothing line, which had a red triangle logo with PG inside, similar to the parental guidance warning on films and games. If I say Pattern Gang to someone, it could mean, yo, pattern that, my friend. Sort that out, my friend. Now, Ian McLaughlin, and I don't even want to say their surname anymore, so we're just going to say the prosecutor, he got a hold of Lil Dot's phone, and he says that at 10:14 p.m. on the day of Digga D's alleged assassination attempt, Lil Dots used the Waze app on his phone to put in directions of how to get to tape, where Digga D was at. It says Digga D was in the studio from 5:30 p.m. and the gang were desperate to find out how long he's going to be there for. At 10:30 p.m., Lil Dot's message, who the court believes is Russ, asking how long is he going to be there, I'm going to sort something out, and Russ didn't give him a response with any information. And around the same time, another alleged HRB member made a note on his phone saying, "Man, you need to go tape, wait for Digga to come out, follow him and just find out his base."
Us man are steppers, them man are not.
Cause we glide on offs. Alright, guys, could you like the video, please? Because we need to remember we're not gonna see this duo again, bro. Broad Day and Lil Dots. This duo was on a mad run. So give the video a like, please, guys. Thank you very much. Let's get that out of the way. And at around 11:30, two members, including that one and another one called Mohammed, left Hayden Tower in Vauxhall, where the gun had allegedly been stashed, and traveled to tape and then went to Lil Dots' yard. At 12 past midnight, Lil Dots messaged who the court believe is Russ, asking him if Digga D's Range Rover was still at the studio, but Russ didn't respond with anything. Well, it says he responded, but he didn't respond with any information. Now, at around 3 a.m., Lil Dot sent somebody named Grandmum on his phone a voice message saying, "Nah, he weren't there, bro, and the whip was gone, man. Tape was starting and the whip was gone." And then obviously around the time, Digga D went on a rant on his story saying, "All street niggas, be careful when you come here. They might give the drop to your opponents," and he's referring to Tape Nightclub. It's a nightclub with a studio in it, for those of you guys that haven't watched my last video. All right, go and watch it if you haven't. Yep, just go do it now, okay? And people are saying, was Digga D dry snitching? Is this snitching? Yeah, I don't know, man. But the two other alleged HRB members who were heading to tape, they had their own separate trial at Harrow, and they were sentenced to 14.5 years and 15 years. But the prosecutor actually ended up bringing up Fredo's name in the trial a few times. It wasn't just what we thought, because a couple days ago, when a few of the court documents got leaked from the 2024 trial, the only mention we could see of Fredo's name, government name Marvin Bailey, was a reference that they believe he made to the tape incident in one of his songs. But we now know that this guy told the jury Fredo and other rappers perform music which glorifies the violence which each gang visits on the others. That doesn't even make no sense. Just basically, he raps about violence. They brag about their own exploits and taunt and goad their opposition. He read out messages from the group chat on the 10th of October 2022. At one point, Fredo said, "It's true, yes, this can't come out or my rap career's over." And 10 minutes later in the same group chat, a bunch of members were arguing about contributing money towards buying a gun. They say that Babika Abdullah, the guy who was sentenced to 15 years, said, "If you can't pay, go catch a body. A man would rather 22 bodies." So they think he's trying to say, if you can't contribute to buy these guns, bro, go and catch a body. Then we'll have 22 bodies. You get. In the group chat, this guy, Yassine Abdullah, who was jailed for 17 years, said, "A lot of man ain't got the glide in them, so let's stick with the paper." And Fredo replied, "Trust me." And the prosecution suggests that glide was a reference to a ride-out or drive-by shooting. The prosecutor also explained to the jury the significance to the HRB gang of the initials BDK. So we spoke about Billy the Kid, and Fredo did make a tribute song for Billy the Kid in Dubai. But the prosecution alleges that this conspiracy all started and stemmed from when Billy the Kid was killed, when they went on a ride out to Stonebridge, pulled out guns, started shooting, and the Stonebridge guys, while they're having their block party, they had their guns on them and they fired back at them. All 8 of them were found guilty of smuggling phones into Wandsworth Prison and Wormwood Scrubs Prison. The court heard the gang used drones to get phones into prison. I interviewed a guy called That Guy AR like years ago on my podcast, and he spoke about how, you know, things get smuggled into jail. And a police officer who regularly patrolled Mozart Estate called PC Hammond, he got up and made a statement. They called it a community impact statement. Chris Summers said it's the first time that he's really heard one of these used in a trial like this. And he just broke down how the gang operating in that area negatively impacts most residents and how it's pretty much hell for a lot of people living there. everywhere. And you know, if you live in an area that is run by a gang, it's very easy for you to get groomed into a gang if you have some issues growing up. You know, your dad's not there, been through some trauma, or your parents up, you know how it goes, innit? You're just more primed to be groomed into the gang. That's why a lot of gang members, they have a lot of trauma, you know? And it says on the 9th night after Billy's death, a large drunken party took place on the Mozart estate. Well, it was a celebration of his life, because for those of you guys that don't know, if you ain't really Caribbean, it's called 9 nights. Usually when somebody dies, like for 9 nights, you go and visit the family house. You know, you have to go and visit the house, pay your respects. And then on the 9th night, there's usually a party celebration to celebrate the person's life. It says there were up to 100 members and associates drinking, dancing to loud music and letting off fireworks. He says there was a genuine feeling that the estate was on a knife edge and there was a risk of major disorder. And he said the day after that, Fredo turned up to make a music video on the estate, and many HRB members sprayed gang-related and anti-police graffiti on walls and doors. He said HRB members arranged a party in the middle of Howell Road, blocking the street and flouting bail conditions by associating with each other. He said many residents were so terrified of HRB that they moved away from the estate, often giving up their tenancies from their council flats. Now, guys, do you know how hard it is to get a freaking council flat? I'm sure if you put yourself on the list, bro, you're going to be on the list for like 50 years or something like that. So like it's no joke giving up your council tenancy. That means you'd rather not, you don't care to live there, bro. And this is where it gets sad, and I can sympathize with this officer, because he said he used to deliver knife crime workshops. You know, if you went to school in London, bro, I'm not sure if they do this in other places. They most likely do, because I know they have to be doing this in Birmingham and that, because Birmingham is freaking treacherous, isn't it? But the police will come to your school and they'll do a workshop, tell you why knife crime's bad. When they came to my secondary school and did that, they told us about 6-7 and said, don't listen to 6-7. We went and straight away listened to 6-7, and that was how I got into drill music. Literally, that's how all of us got into drill music, bro. Or all of the people I grew up with. That's how we all got into drill music from that day. But he said, sadly, I've stood delivering this in a classroom to a young person who was subsequently murdered in a gang-related stabbing. And Lil Dot's mother ended up giving a statement for him, saying his sister died of health issues, then his brother died in a road accident, and another one of his brothers was murdered. She said she herself suffered mental health issues, and that her sons, Denisha and Javon, then had to care for her and try to process the trauma of losing their brother. She asked the judge for leniency and said she hoped her son would be able to work for a more positive future. I just feel most sorry for the mum. You know what I mean? I feel most sorry for the mum. And a bunch of other people, a bunch of other defendants, they obviously had people speaking on their behalf. You know, that's naturally what you're going to do when you're facing this long. But the judge was not having it. Tregilgas Davis, he was not having it. Well, Tregilgas Davey, Judge Tregilgas Davey. Listen, Judge, I respect you, right? Judges have too much power. Yeah, I respect you, okay? He said, some of you in the dock are very high-ranking members of HRB. You are living in the shadows of a civilized society. Not one of you have shed an ounce of remorse for what you have done. The truth is that you as members of the HRB are a blight on your own community. HRB is an urban street gang involved in a long-running feud with CGM. He said there was prominent enmity between the two gangs' leading rappers Fredo and Digga D, and he said both musicians released music videos glorifying gang violence and mocking their rivals. And here's where Fredo gets mentioned again, and this is why it does not look likely that he's going to be able to come back to the UK without facing trial. The judge said Fredo, Marvin Bailey, was not in court, having skipped bail and fled to Dubai. But he made a point of saying that in the Snapchat group, Fredo went on a rant and told Lil Dot that he was not acting quickly enough to avenge the death of his brother. Yeah, he said that to him. You're using my man's trauma to get him to act in your interests. But it's not like that, you know, it's not like that, because like these men are all just, you know, things have happened to Fredo allegedly, you know, things have happened to people they care about. So they're just deep in the mindset of, yo, I need to get these guys, bro. Like these guys are taking the piss. I need to get these guys. But at the same time, that is a manipulation tactic, bro. The judge said Lil Dotch responded to the rant by his mentor. He's calling Fredo his mentor and became the leader of the conspiracy to shoot Digga D. And here's another thing that gets leaked. They say that Digga D is going to be released. Officially, we've got confirmation. Digga D is going to be out of prison in October 2025. In 2 months' time, Digga D is going to be home. But the lead investigator said officers were able to pick their plan apart through months of tireless investigation, including the identification of high-ranking gang members, the analysis of more than 100 phones, and tackling the suspects of crime head-on. We're treating organized crime gangs like terrorists, employing similar tactics to disrupt their activity. And yeah, guys, that's it. So the judge has said that Fredo skipped bail, and Fredo is to stand trial by himself. But all it looks like to us is that they've got some messages that have been sent to a Snapchat group that they say is Fredo. Could have not been him. I don't think they'll be able to link him to the gun. Conspiracies these days are absolutely mental, you know. if you've got a part in a conspiracy, bro, you can get screwed just for a little text, just for some little involvement. You know what I mean? Obviously, the messages probably ain't him anyway. You know, we'll have to wait and see because everyone's guilty until proven innocent. What am I saying? Everybody's innocent until proven guilty, and we'll see. You know, if Fredo returns to the UK, if they extradite him, we don't know. But he was shooting a music video the other day, so hopefully we're gonna get some new music from Fredo, and we're gonna see where this goes. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Chung Lee says Fredo ain't never coming back to the UK, bro. Well, I don't know, Chung Lee. I don't know. We don't know. We have to wait. You know, we don't know. We just don't know, innit? We don't know. We just know that Digga D is going to be released in October this year. And also, for more details and a breakdown of the text messages and all of the messages, then I'm going to link the video now. It's going to be on the screen. You can click it and go and watch that video there. Peace and love to every single one of you watching. Thank you.